All right, we're in. There's a correction from last week. Not really correction, maybe a clarification from one of last week's episodes. We were talking about the Eddie and Thor fight. I don't have a documentation for this, but I've seen it a number of times. Seen people say it a number of times that they were both paid $1 million.
Yeah, I read that
for
too.
that fight,
but then you said the one thing said that they donated it all. The purse.
And so I don't.
Maybe it was $1 million guaranteed, and then $200K winner, and they're like, oh. Well, that's crazy. I'd probably give up $200K if I'm getting $1 million too. What am I, a saint? Saint Michael?
St. Michael of the Weak Point Training. We have a question from our Discord. Lucas Franco says, how important / overhyped is weak point training?
If you guys want to get involved, be sure to head to 50percentfacts.com. Click on the Discord link, hop in our Discord. We got a like-minded community, exclusives on merch, and then we also have a category called the one or only question or the best question. You can go in there, drop as many questions as you want. If we choose your question to be featured, then we will send you a free gift from good company, Jim and I, Third Street Barbell, and also just a place to chat. We got outfit categories in there. We can talk about lifting. We talk about gaming. Anything you're into, we got a category for it in Discord. If you don't have Discord, check it out. It's kind of like a WhatsApp or an iMessenger or a forum, really, but it's private and exclusive, and so you can set it up customized with voice chats, video chats, memes, all the fun. So check that out. Today we're talking weak point training. Last week we talked a little bit more philosophical, so we'll probably bounce around the questions we're talking about.
Yeah. So the balance of this question: do people / coaches over-obsess and misdiagnose them when the solution may be to just get stronger? That being said, when targeting weak points, do you look at the movement or the muscles for additional training?
That's good.
I.e. more triceps training for a weak bench lockout versus partial range of motion via pin or board presses as a movement?
That's really good. So I think the question is well formed, and you basically answered your damn self, in my opinion. But if we were to go by my coaching philosophies and what's worked for me, and a lot of the coaches that I agree with, I would say majority of the time, and it depends what coach you talk to, obviously, but I think people, athletes, and the general pop do obsess over it, and it's highly overrated weak point training. When I think about weak point training now, in my head, I think bodybuilding. That makes a lot more sense. You step on stage and your triceps are smaller than your delts and you look bad or you don't look symmetrical. Weak point those triceps, right? That makes sense. Like that's directly a weak point in the ultimate goal to have the balanced physique. In lifting weights, I think it's much, much different. I think that the majority of the time you are just not strong enough. If you're going to miss a lift, whether you are fatigued that day or anywhere 95 to 105% of your max, you're going to miss a lift somewhere. That's how it goes if you're not strong enough.
You're going to miss a lift at the point of your least mechanical advantage.
Right, whether that be a misgroove or just natural strength progression, natural strength curve, and biomechanical leverages of that lift. Now, to answer the second part, I do think you can add in some variations by movement. I don't think muscle, by movement to maybe help some things that you're not perfect at. But then again, once you get to 101%, you're going to miss regardless, right? So I think specificity when it comes to raw powerlifting is going to always be king. You have to get better, build strength, build positioning in the 3 lifts you want to do. If you're a sumo deadlifter, chances are when the weight gets really hard, you're going to be slower or miss on the ground. That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
Do you miss lockout? Do certain people miss lockout on a sumo? Sure. Again, when it gets too heavy, or maybe you just have bad starting position, your back's a little round, and you have to kind of uncoil yourself. That is semi-common. In the conventional deadlift, often it's at lockout. We get a lot of speed off the ground with your hammies, your quads, your back. Everything's kind of used off the ground, and you tend to miss at lockout. All that being said, I think we need to practice those lifts as much as you can, multiple times a week for most, not all. But what we can do is if we're deadlifting twice a week, one day be your main day, maybe a little heavier, maybe a little bit more volume, and you're doing it in that specific movement. This is just one example on programming. And then my second day is when I would use a variation that maybe has some tie-in to my weak point or where I miss. But the truth is, most variations automatically do that. So if you're doing a deficit deadlift, well, you're carrying the bar a longer range of motion, which is going to eventually help your lockout. If you're doing a block pull, obviously we have a tie-in to our lockout there. I think when you're choosing a variation, sometimes it can be weak point oriented. Sometimes it can be a lift that forces you to use less weight. A big favorite of mine recently is just a snatch grip beltless. Because I'm deadlifting really heavy on a Tuesday, my Friday deadlift, I want it to be lighter so I don't, quote unquote, overtrain or just have too much general fatigue that I can't progress week to week. So I'll go beltless snatch grip, which is a much more difficult variation. Does help my lockout? Sure. Does it build my back? Sure. Does it build my glutes? Sure. But it also just forces me to get more work in with a lighter overall stimulus. And same thing could be said for bench. Most people bench pressing, it does depend on your grip. A wider grip, more arched lifter can lose strength off the chest sometimes, where a closer grip, a bulkier, bigger person may lose the lift at the top, but majority of bench presses are lost somewhere just above midway or 3/4 of the way on the bench press. I think you just need to get stronger on the goddamn bench press. Now, can we use some bands? Can we use some chains? Can we use some feet up bench? Can we use some even dumbbells to really, or a Duffalo bar? I love that the Buffalo bar doesn't exist anymore. It's the fucking Duffalo bar.
Yeah.
Props.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, it's good. Or the Spoto press. Half these motherfuckers don't know who Larson or Spoto are. Swear to God.
Oh, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and there are people that we know.
No, that's legacy. I knew them before. We knew them before their lift was a lift.
Right.
But those are great variations to help your bench press. Again, if you're benching, it's probably something, in my personal coaching experience, and opinion, that you could probably do multiple times a week. So we could probably bench 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week, where we can sprinkle in those variations to a Larson press, a Spoto press, a band press. All those things we're using less weight than we typically would on the comp lift. We should practice the comp lift a couple times a week, and we can sprinkle those in on the other days.
Accessory lifts, basically.
Yeah, except I'm throwing them on a whole other day. The other way, I would call it maybe more of an accessory lift, where you do a bench 3x3, and then you go Larson on the same day, which is also a way to get into it. I think at that point you're kind of beating a dead horse. Jim mentioned in another episode where you do too much heavy lifts on the same day, and are you giving it all you got? Is it worth it? Or as a coach, I would spread them out. So if I'm benching Monday, Wednesday, Friday, my Monday's heavy and it's comp lift, competition style. Maybe my Tuesday's leg up bench and I'm doing some reps, 5 to 8s. And then my Friday is somewhere in between. Maybe it's moderate reps at competition stance, or depending on where I am in a meet. One way you can progress into a meet and taper into a meet is obviously raising volume, then slowly tapering it away, handling heavier loads until it's meet day. But another variation or another aspect of tapering or programming we can do is, 12 weeks out, I have 2 variation days. So I'm comp bench Monday, Spoto Wednesday, Larson Friday. Then 8 weeks out, I'm comp bench Monday, Spoto Wednesday, comp bench Friday, and then 4 weeks out, I'm comp bench, comp bench, comp bench. So those are all just aspects and tools we kind of use to get you more primed to display your best lift. And I know I just rambled forever, but hopefully that gives you some information on weak point training and fucking programming.
Yeah, and just to throw this out there too, some of the assistant stuff you do obviously makes a difference. One of the things that people kind of overlook for the bench press is probably push-ups. Like super easy, something you can do all the time. You can do as many push-ups as you want whenever. Just don't get into a push-up contest with anybody.
When we're talking push-ups and we're talking
to failure, just don't do that.
You even mentioned it in the question where you're talking about muscle groups for a weak point. I look at those things more in the almost like a bodybuilder, but in the off season or whatever cycle you want to call it. You can have an insanely big bench press and not be able to do push downs well at all. And the opposite. I can push down like a motherfucker, tricep push down, and my bench is laughable. But for an individual, similar to my bodybuilding example, in our off season and during prep, we should be building muscle, or at least maintaining muscle with isolations or different movements that aren't just squat, bench, dead. That's a great idea. And in the off season, we'll put more emphasis in those things. You probably don't want to go for, a skull crusher PR 4 weeks out from a meet. No. But in the off season, when you're getting a lot of food, a lot of rest, let's push those triceps and grow them, make them bigger, because when you are going to be a little bit bigger, you have the potential to be a little bit stronger when we do hop into that taper.
Also, upper back training. I mean, that's the thing that made a difference in my deadlift for sure. I think it made a difference in my bench. I don't know if I ever did anything for my squat, but thing that people lose sight of is that we don't do a lift that you don't need to keep your upper back tight for. So
to tie into our last episode where we talked a little bit about Louis Simmons' legacy, is something he talked about doing upper back on, or when we say upper back, we mean lats, traps, rhomboids, etc. Anything that's not really erectors or a hinge, almost every day. And that's something I utilize a lot with my athletes and myself. You do a couple chin-ups, you do a couple rows every single day. You may be sore for a week or two, but after that week or two, you're going to adapt to it and not be sore anymore, and it's not going to take away from your main lifts, and there's literally no downside. It's all a net positive.
All right. That's a good place to tie this one off.
Ladies and gentlemen, 3sb.co. Check out the apparel. Americana, American Traditional drop is still live. Discord. Join us, 50percentfacts.com. All the memes are welcome. All the lifting, all the questions are welcome. I'm Silent Mike, wherever you want to find me. We'll catch you every Wednesday and Friday. Be sure to give us a rating and review and share this thing out on socials. It helps a lot. Thank you.
I am at the Jim McD on all the social media. This show, 50% Facts.
You almost said 51st Dates.
51st Dates. That's a different website. 50% Facts, where percent is a word, and 50 is just numbers. And go to that website. And find all of where we are. And we'll talk to you next week.